Anybody got a prescription, yeah, for this love pain? Anybody got a pill like a pop?
Hey, welcome to another Friday night edition of All the Way Live with the Love Byrds. I am one half of your dynamic duo. I go by the name of Dr. James Byrd. And as always, my lovely and talented, beautiful wife is joining me, and she goes by the name of
Dr. Angel Byrd.
And together we are the Love Byrds. And it is always great to join you on a Friday night. Ooh, I already feel the energy better than it was last Friday. Was there something stressing you out or something last Friday? No? Sure, you got anything you want to talk about?
No, I don't. Absolutely don't. I have a cousin that's talking about it enough.
Let's get going. We are going to finish up this week on the 10 marital hardships that can destroy your marriage, and if you let them, and how to overcome them. So, before I go down the list of what we already covered and getting into them, greet the audience, share, like what's on your heart, what's going on. Let them hear Dr. Angel Byrd.
Hello, people. You already know the first thing that concerns me is that other couples around the world get to hear the information that you're going to hear that's going to change your life and change your relationship. So it's very important. I'm all about community. I'm all about everybody being involved. So hit that share button and let's give the people the information that's going to help and change you as well.
All right, let's get in it. 10 marital hardships. We started out a few weeks ago, and so we've talked about financial struggles, how financial struggles and money problems can destroy and do destroy marriage relationships. And so we went over some ways to keep that from happening in yours. Go back a few weeks and listen to the beginning of this series. We talked about challenging children, how that can affect your relationship. We talked about immaturity. That was good. We spent a lot of time on immaturity.
Yeah.
How that can really destroy a relationship. Unfaithfulness, another one which we spent a lot of time on. Unfaithfulness. Moving, which would surprise some people unless people that have been through it. We talked about moving from state to state or moving even within your state. We talked about sickness, how sickness can destroy relationships. And then we finished with depression, and we spent quite a bit of time on depression.
Yeah.
There's a lot of layers to depression. All right, so this week, 8, 9, and 10, we're going to wrap these up today. I'm pretty sure. We'll see. So we're starting with disinterest, or another way we could put that is maybe boredom.
In the relationship.
So sometimes it happens for some people in the first year. Sometimes it doesn't happen till a decade or so, or later on down the line in a relationship where the people in the couple gets disinterested with one another. Boredom sets in. I think another way people are used to hearing that is maybe taking each other for granted a lot. And so if this comes in, and listen, it can come in any relationship. The key here is not to allow it to stay and not allow it to pitch a tent, not to allow it to build a home.
Yeah, you stay there too long.
Yeah, when you stay there too long,
dangerous place.
That's trouble. You're opening up doors. And so, our job is to be intentional about making sure that we don't allow this interest to set in a relationship.
So from a man perspective and from a male's view, how do you do that as the male? Because normally it's on their end.
I think for me, by us being one together and growing in everything together and engaging in so much together, it keeps us moving, keeps me moving in unison with you. And what do I mean? I mean, we do ministry together. We do marriage counseling together. You learn about nutrition and you tell me about it, and I learn about it. I learn about trading in the financial markets and I tell you, about it. Our kids, we do that journey together. So just the more that we can do together, books that we read and We talk about videos that we watch.
Yeah.
Of course, the Bible, and you know all the challenge, not the challenges of the Bible, but the challenges of understanding the Bible in light of sometimes tough situations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all these things, you know, keep us engaged, and then too, here for me, a lack of allowing myself to be engaged into anybody else.
So how do you stop that?
How do you start it?
Yeah. Well, how do you start it?
Because I don't start it. So,
Okay.
I mean, you just set some rules in the way you do life.
Okay.
You know, I don't do life.
I mean, what help the men?
I
How
don't
do
do
they?
life with other single women, other women. I don't do life with other people's married women, or wives, or whatever. You know, if it's a married couple, we do life with couples together, or whatever, or something like that, or whatever. But I don't engage into you know, relationships, phone, texting, all that kind of stuff with, you know, opposite sex. That should be opposite sex relationships.
Yeah.
I don't engage in opposite sex relationships.
Yeah.
And so I don't allow myself to get, you know, locked in into something I got to try to fight my way out of.
Yeah.
If we ever, you know, whenever we've gone through times of struggle in our relationship, and you know, for whatever reasons, I don't have some other female to turn to. That's not who I turn to.
Yeah.
I turn to God.
Yeah.
You know, I turn to wise counsel. I turn to you, and you know, we got to fix it and get it right. But you know, that's where, you know, if you got friends of the opposite sex already, and then you run into a rough patch in this, when you turn to your friends, look who you turn to. You turn to people of the opposite sex. You know, we've counseled a lot of couples where, you know, one of the problems that happens in a lot of relationships is, I'm not comfortable with his relationship with her.
Yeah.
Or I'm not comfortable with her relationship with him. Oh, this is a friend of mine, has been a friend of mine forever. We grew up together, went to high school together. Once I got married, all those girls that I went to high school with that I was really good friends with, I'm not really good friends with them anymore.
And what blows me away is in counseling when it's almost like a death that's taking place for them to think about getting rid of the other person.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna destroy your marriage, and you're like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
It's something wrong with that picture if you're willing to keep a friend over your wife or keep a friend over your husband. It's something wrong with that picture.
And what kind of friend doesn't understand that?
Yeah, and what kind of friend wouldn't give you wise counsel and say, oh no, if that's gonna ruin your relationship, then no, we need to. But if they're on your team saying, why she acting jealous? Why he acting they already the wrong person.
Yeah,
they already the wrong person.
And y'all may not have plans for anything like that, but a lot of this happens a lot in relationships, and it's not planned. It happens.
Yeah.
And then here too, why is that person jealous? The person is usually jealous, not necessarily because of something the friend per se is doing. It's usually something that the spouse is doing. Their spouse is doing, meaning the spouse overhears them talking and sharing intimate stuff with the friend that they're not even sharing with the wife.
Yeah.
Or texting the friend at all kind of crazy hours of the night that they're not, you know, talking to the spouse. That
and
makes
then all of
jealousy.
these passwords and secret kept with between devices and stuff like that, like you offended.
Yeah.
You know, that they saw your phone or was holding your phone or any of those things. It's like, what causes you to be offended?
Right. And I mentioned jealousy. We mentioned jealousy. I mean, people think like jealousy, just period, is just a bad thing. Not all jealousy is not bad.
Some of it's warning.
Yeah, you know, I'm married, and I desire for her main attention to be on me. And if her main attention is on somebody else, then yeah, I'm jealous for that. It's kind of like God yearns and is jealous for us, for our attention. He doesn't want us giving our attention to the world. It's for Him. He wants us giving it to Him or whatever. So that's not a bad jealousy there. But that's how I keep from being disinterested and bored. And then regular date nights, things like that. Getting interested in the same shows.
One day, not long ago, you said, I tap out. I can't watch another Lifetime movie.
It's not that I can't watch another Lifetime movie some other time, but that day I could.
That's what I mean. I was like, okay, another one's coming on. Okay, I'm done for the night. I was just like,
you know how TV does nowadays.
Just
Certain stations, as soon as one, this is the way it used to be. When something ended, then there were credits, then commercials.
Not anymore.
And you had all that time to go change channels. But now what they do, they smart. When one ends, the credits come on in a little small area, and the new next one starts immediately.
Yes.
And then you're like,
again.
what is this one going to be about? They got you. And so that day I was like, listen, no more Lifetime Day. But you know, I try to be somewhat interested in the things that you are interested in.
And I hadn't watched a Lifetime movie until this pandemic took place.
Right.
I had not watched, because I didn't watch TV.
No.
And so it's just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what keeps me from being disinterested. What keeps you from being disinterested?
Well,
what keeps
women. I can't speak for all women.
So
You
what
know,
keeps you?
what keep me is excitement, things that are different, conversations, knowing that you're completely present, not just there, but present. Not that you're listening, but I'm being heard. Those are two different things, you know, and thinking about things on your own that will cause us to do things that are exciting and romantic. You know, those are like, you just stay in the game.
Like skinny dipping?
No. In what, in water? No. So, no. And so just, that whole relational piece, because that's who I am. You know, without relationship, for me, everything dies off.
So if you're a couple and you've seen boredom, disinterest, and things like seem to set into your relationship, here's one way you know it's really set in. If you don't know, you don't even miss not being together.
Yeah.
You don't even miss conversation. You're just fine. As long as you're not arguing or whatever, you're just fine. You go your way, I catch you at night, whatever. If that's the nature of your relationship, then disinterest has set in.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize it. And that's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah, because before the pandemic, people were in such a rat race, but didn't know it until it happened, where they had to be calm and settle down. All of us would have just kept going down that rabbit trail.
Yeah.
You know, until you get to see like, oh, so I didn't have to be that busy? Oh, I could have planned this and it could have worked out this way. You thought you had no time.
Yeah.
You literally thought you had no time. We would tell friends, man, I know it's been a month and I've been so busy that I couldn't call you. How can you not call a friend in a month because you're that consumed? You know, so during this time,
if there's any friends watching that I haven't called in a month, I'm sorry.
That's just whatever.
Call me. All right, good. So, all right, we'll move on to the next one. Number 9, bing, careers. You know, we've already talked about moving a little bit, but career issues can cause hardships and challenges with, you know, locations, job changes, you know, kind of like church changes. Job changes can be tough. Here's another one. If you're looking at making a career change and you're not communicating that with your spouse, and so you get ready to move into another vein, another direction, and it just blinds. So they're just like, this doesn't have anything to do with what we've been doing or what we've talked about. Yeah. Where did this come out of? Left field. I mean, something like that can really, and then if that career pulls you away from the person with your time, energy, attention, things like that, that can cause the death of a relationship.
Yeah, and anybody that's seeking to be married and looking to be married, and if the person you're marrying is already a workaholic, and you just think that the day you say I do, they're not going to be that.
Oh girl, he's such a hard worker.
You're going to be miserable, because every wife and husband eventually want to spend some kind of quality time if things are okay. And for you to work 6 and 7 days your body wasn't even designed for that, to work like that. So don't fool yourself and think that you're going to just compromise. I mean, you're going to just get used to it. If they're never home, you're not going to get used to that, especially if that's not what you're looking for. Don't say that's okay to be married and then you're going to be miserable when you say I do. Don't do that to yourself.
Don't do that. And this is what you have to do to avoid this and from allowing this to destroy your relationship. You need to do everything within your power to protect family time.
Yeah.
And when it comes to your career and your job, promote a culture, put together a culture that respects your family time.
Absolutely.
Just like we do even in our ministry. You know, we want to respect the family time of people. You know, we don't want them, you know, we don't want to be consuming them all the time. And you don't want to just leave them to not be doing anything.
Yeah.
But protect your family culture. You know, I often tell people when you know, we tell people when our children were growing up, you know, when our kids play sports, and especially young J2, when he was playing sports, you know, we protected a family culture. You know, we're not going to be playing 3 sports at the same time, where every night of the week we're caught up. And no, you pick one sport at this time. When that one ends, then you play another. When that one ends, then you play another.
Yeah, each his own, but I just don't think it's healthy, you know, for you to be so consumed and then they grow up and you're consumed until they graduate and go to college.
Yeah.
And then you looking across your fence at your wife and saying, what's your name?
Because life was all about
them. You didn't build this.
Their careers, and then because in the midst of what's going on with the children, you're working.
Yeah,
and what if both of y'all working?
Yeah.
So you got these 2 separate careers and run around trying to, we've all done it, run around trying to get these kids to the league. You know, I had a better goal. Get them to college, through college. If something happens after that, hey, that's a bonus. Yeah. But let's get them through college or whatever.
And if they're good enough at it, then get them through paid for college. That's what we did. We didn't have to pay a dime for it. Get them through, and now it's their decision, you know, for them to go to do the next level.
And that's it's interesting that again, set that culture, family culture. Make sure your children know you have date nights.
Yeah, because when our children were all in the same house and we were all there was really no need for me to watch my cell phone or to have it like that, because if all my kids are in the same place, I don't care who's calling me at that point.
Right.
I keep my phone around or whatever because my kids are in different states, in different places, and so if it's Joy or Tia or J2, then I'm on it. But if they were all in the same room, I can care less if it was on. Right. Because we're with family, we together.
We're with family, and you got to respect that family time. You got in that culture, have that time where sometimes nobody's on the phone. Have that time where you know you can sit down and eat dinner together and talk about different things and laugh and joke and play and have a good time. Yeah. You know, build that family because at the end of the road, it's life is not about how much money you amass. It's not about the biggest house and biggest cars. It's not about all of that. It's about family. Yep. It's about relationships. That's what life is about. Nobody.
I don't know how you live without them.
Nobody. You put somebody into a place by themselves with nobody
for a period of time. It's over.
It's over. They're gonna start talking to chairs and tables and stuff because we're meant to do relationship. Absolutely. But as in talking about this one, you mentioned, you know, you spend all your time, you know, chasing these kids around, then they grow up, they go to college, and then now they're done, and you look at each other like, what? Well, guess what? Number 10 is empty nest. The empty nest syndrome. Yeah. And that's where the empty nest syndrome comes for, is, you know, we've been together for 30 years raising, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 children. Yeah. And you know what? Some people only survive, we'll talk a little bit about empty nest here, but some people only survive empty nest syndrome because the kids have children. Yeah. And now they start all over again with the grandchildren.
Yes. Because if the grandchildren wasn't there or they didn't have any, what would your life look like?
Yeah.
Because what I tell all of my friends is we trained and planned for our kids to We prepared them to leave, but no one prepared us for them to leave.
Right.
And the pain that you can feel in that whole, like, what do I do now? I've been a mother for so long. You know, you're not mothering your spouse.
Right.
You know, so it's like.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah, and when J2 left, you would have thought it was over. Like, I was never going to see him again. It was the worst feeling of my whole entire life. It's like, wait a minute, he's 8 hours away. You mean to tell me I took him to school every day pretty much of his life. And now I'm not driving him to school. I mean, everything was taken away from me. And it's like, he was like, are you about to leave yet? You good? Go ahead and get back on the road. And I'm just like, how did this just happen? And then when he was there for his first freshman year, he didn't want to call me. I'm like a whole week and I'm like losing it. And so it's horrible. I don't know how you guys feel. You may say, I can't wait for him to leave, but that wasn't my story. And it took a minute. People was praying for me. I mean, he was like, I was grieving. And so, because we were all so close, you know, and it was like, remember the day Joy shut that door behind me and Kay, you was up the street. And I'm just like, and I'm crying all the way home. So that's how it was for me. And I pray that it's not like that for you. If it is, get it out, talk to somebody. Empty nest syndrome for some people is not a joke.
Not a joke.
It's not a joke.
And if your children are still in the home, you have to prepare for that right now. So you have to focus on this relationship first.
Yeah.
The children's relationship is second. You have to date, talk, communicate, and even sometimes when you go on a date or something, don't be on a date talking about the kids.
Yeah.
One of the surefire ways to help couples have something to talk about is to read books. Mm-hmm. Read books together, read books to each other, read books together, read the same books and talk about those things. Of course, read the Bible, talk about those things, watch certain things, engage in the same thing. The one thing that makes this empty nest syndrome even worse for people is that, okay, we've lived this life through our kids, but even outside our kids, we did our own thing.
Yeah.
You worked your job, man.
Yeah.
I had my interests, you had yours. I had my hobbies, you had yours. And there was really nothing we did together other than take the kids somewhere or sleep together at night.
Yeah. And in so many couples, soon as that happens, divorce happens.
Yes.
And it's because you were living two separate lives, completely tied up in the kids. And even if you did fun things together, sometimes parents don't discuss how painful it is when the children leave.
Yeah.
You see, and they just play it off and they end up in other relationships trying to fill those voids and in pain and things like that. Because I'll never forget, I turned J2's room into, remember, like a war room type thing. And you were in his bathroom. And I was just like, when you start cutting your hair in here? Like, why are you in here? Or whatever. And I'll never forget, you was just like, I miss him just like you do. Or whatever. I'll never forget that day. But you didn't just come and tell me on your own. I was expressing how I felt. Everybody knew how I felt. But you never said, man, this is really kind of jacking me up a little bit. And I miss him. Or whatever. Until I had that kind of pushed you up, in a corner or whatever. And then you expressed like, that's my dude too. And so I feel like you have to discuss how you feel and quit keeping this stuff inside. And I'm speaking to males, especially if you're hurting that your kid is going to college or you missing them, discuss it. Because that brings intimacy as well. To be able to say, oh, you miss them too? Mm-hmm. Oh my God. And then you can have empathy for the other person because you're thinking, dang, it's no big deal to them. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm thinking it's not a big deal to you, then I'm feeling some kind of way.
But you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because your spouse doesn't have to
feel like
the same way you feel. Uh-huh. And that doesn't make them love the child any less. That doesn't make, they're different than you. That's just, they're different than you. And we've probably already talked about differences or talked about it on another show, but it's hard not to do. So anytime we get to mention difference is okay. I like to mention that because if you can find somebody that does a podcast like this and every week all they talk about is how couples are different, that's fine. Don't get bored with that. Don't say, their topics is just every week is talking about how couples are different. Keep listening to it. That's enough to help you.
But you live it out anyway, because if you guys wasn't different, you would be just perfect best friends, never have marriage issues.
Right.
You know, just the fact that you bump into all these roadblocks and all these things that you go through, letting you know that you don't think the same and that you're not the same, and it's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. Man, it helps us grow. And you know, it helps us see somebody else's side of something.
Yeah.
There's so many things I wouldn't have seen a certain side of it if I were not married to you or whatever, because you see from a different side, you see from a different pain, you see from a different past, you see, you know what I'm saying? And so instead of getting mad at that, which sometimes we do until we learn, you know, and that's why I love helping out these younger couples, you know, because things that I struggle with at times for years, they won't have to struggle with, because we learn these differences. We learn the disc assessments. We learn all these different things. Yeah. And even if in the moment something bothers me, how quickly I can turn my mind to, that's just wiring. That's just difference. That ain't no big deal. But in the past, before knowing that, your mind will quickly turn to, dang, man, is she ever going to change? Or he gets on my nerve. Yeah. See, when your mind turns to that, you're not understanding that difference is okay.
Yeah.
And you don't understand how your spouse is wired and how they tick, because they're going to keep ticking the way they tick. Listen, we can read the Bible. Listen, I know you love God. I love God. Man, we work to change, to make ourselves better. And we have over the years so much. Yeah. But at the core, you still tick like you tick, and I still tick like I tick.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to be able to change that about somebody. So the best thing to do is get to know that about them and learn how to dwell in peace with together. Man, that was great. Those 10 things were pretty good. Anything else on empty nest?
No, I just pray that if you're in the middle of it, guess what? Get the help that you need, and understand that it's okay to get to know the person even though you didn't get to know them all those years. And if you do have small children, I pray that you take this advice and apply it to your life and put each other in the front and be able to build this relationship, so once they're gone and get their own family, you still have a family.
Yeah. Listen, I'm gonna help you. If your children are gone and you're experiencing this empty nest syndrome right now, this is what I challenge you to do. Cut off all communications with anybody for a time that you just enjoy talking to, and you're spending all your time talking to. Cut off all communication with them. Tell them, you know what, I'm gonna cut off communication for about 30 days. You ain't did nothing wrong, ain't nothing, but I'm working on something.
Yeah.
Cut off communication with them for 30, 45 days or whatever. And then only communicate with your spouse. Learn them. Watch these shows, talk about this information, and get to know one another. Do some dates, do some different things, get to know one another. Take some assessments. There's a lot of assessments out there. Take some personality assessments. There's a lot of things you can do. Go join a salsa dancing class. Go, put your mask on. Go salsa dancing. Go, what I'm saying?
Only with your partner, your spouse.
Go and learn. Listen, if you didn't know that was, you really struggling with the empty nest syndrome. If I'm saying, if you didn't always talk about only salsa dance with your spouse. If we had to point that out to you. I
said that because you said with a mask on, and I was like, well,
I mean, if you're in a class, there's other people in the class, so I'm saying that's why you got the mask on.
Okay.
But so that's a challenge, and I'm telling you that will help you, because you will get to know them and you will communicate with them. And then you can bring back in your friends, your BFFs, and things like that. All right. You got anything you want to share from Online Feel Good?
No, I don't.
Great. Man, this has been a wonderful, wonderful Friday night. Another great edition of All the Way Live with the Words. We got it right on time today. I'm trying to do 30 minutes, y'all. We hit it right on the nose. Great job, babe. Again, this has been All the Way Live with the Birds. I am one half of the dynamic duo, Dr. Jamie Byrd, and my lovely, talented, beautiful wife,
Dr. Angel Byrd.
And together we are the Birds. We will see you next week.